The history of Islam, like that of many major religions, is closely intertwined with the cultural and spiritual traditions of the regions where it originated. Some argue that Islam's roots are connected to older belief systems, particularly those involving the worship of deities considered false gods in the Judeo-Christian tradition. One such figure is Baal, frequently mentioned in the Bible as a rival to the worship of Yahweh. In the Old Testament, Baal is depicted as a source of temptation for the Israelites, drawing them into idolatry and disobedience. For example, Numbers 25:3 states that Israel joined themselves to Baal of Peor, provoking God's anger and resulting in severe consequences for the Israelites. This tension between worshiping Yahweh and turning to Baal recurs throughout the Old Testament. A notable instance is the story of the prophet Elijah on Mount Carmel, 1 Kings 18, where he confronted the prophets of Baal and urged the Israelites to choose between Yahweh and Baal. This story underscores the perception of Baal as a significant spiritual adversary to Yahweh in the lives of the Israelites. In the New Testament, Baal reappears under a different name, Beelzebub, often referred to as the Prince of Demons. In Mark 3 verses 22-30, the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting out demons through Beelzebub's power. While Jesus refutes their accusation, he does not dispute the notion of Beelzebub as a ruler of demons. The name Beelzebub, derived from Baal, translates to Lord of the Flies or Lord of the House and is widely interpreted as a representation of Satan. This connection suggests that Baal, in biblical terms, is another guise for Satan, described as the ruler of all evil forces. From this perspective, some critics argue that Islam, as a global religion, could be seen as a continuation of Baal worship in a different form. They draw parallels between Baal's role in leading the Israelites astray and Islam's emergence as a dominant faith. According to this argument, just as Baal diverted the Israelites from worshiping Yahweh, Islam now draws people away from Christian and Jewish teachings. Critics further claim that Allah, the deity worshipped in Islam, is another representation of Baal, perpetuating Satan's effort to redirect worship away from the God of the Bible. Supporters of this perspective often highlight theological differences between Islam and Christianity as evidence. For instance, the Quran denies core Christian doctrines such as the divinity of Jesus and the concept of the Trinity, both central to Christian faith. Additionally, Islam positions Muhammad as the final prophet, which contrasts with Christian beliefs about Jesus being the ultimate revelation of God. These differences are interpreted as indicators of Islam's opposition to the biblical understanding of God, reinforcing the idea of Islam as a spiritual competitor. Another aspect of this argument involves the historical use of the name Allah. Some critics claim that the term has ties to Baal, but historical evidence indicates that Arab Christians used the name Allah to refer to God long before the rise of Islam. This suggests that the name itself may not have a direct connection to Baal but rather evolved through cultural and linguistic practices. Nevertheless, critics focus on the theological content of Islam, arguing that its teachings diverge significantly from those of Christianity and Judaism, further supporting their interpretation of Islam's spiritual role. While these arguments are controversial and heavily debated, they reflect broader discussions about the theological and historical relationships between major world religions. The argument that Islam represents a continuation of Baal worship stems from a broader interpretation of spiritual conflict throughout history. This perspective suggests that Satan has repeatedly used false systems of worship to divert humanity's devotion away from God. Baal, viewed as Yahweh's primary rival in the Old Testament, is seen by some as a precursor to Islam, which they argue now plays a similar role. Framing Islam within this spiritual battle ties its origins and influence to a long-standing struggle over humanity's allegiance to God. The Kaaba in Mecca, Islam's holiest site, has a history deeply rooted in pre-Islamic religious practices. Before the rise of Islam, the Kaaba was a polytheistic sanctuary housing numerous idols worshipped by Arab tribes. Among these idols, Hubal was the most prominent, regarded as the chief deity of the Quraysh tribe, the tribe into which Muhammad was born. Hubal's origins trace back to Syria, where a chieftain introduced the idol to Mecca after acquiring it from the Moabites, an Old Testament people identified as descendants of Lot. This connection places Hubal within the broader tradition of Baal worship, a dominant religious practice in the ancient Near East. The Moabites, known for their devotion to Baal, influenced neighboring regions, including Arabia. Hubal, brought from Syria and established as the central deity of the Kaaba, shares many characteristics with Baal. Both were associated with celestial bodies, Hubal as a moon god, and both held roles as chief gods within their respective pantheons. This connection is further reinforced by linguistic and cultural continuity, suggesting that Hubal was a regional adaptation of Baal. The rituals surrounding the Kaaba also illustrate this connection. One of the central acts of Islamic worship, the circling of the Kaaba, known as tawaf, predates Islam and was practiced by pre-Islamic pagans. Historical accounts and Islamic sources confirm that tawaf was originally performed in devotion to the idols housed in the Kaaba, including Hubal. Arab tribes made pilgrimages to Mecca, engaging in this ritual to honor their gods. Islamic tradition attributes the origins of the Kaaba and tawaf to Abraham, claiming that he built the Kaaba and performed the ritual in devotion to the one true God. However, there is no historical or archaeological evidence to support the claim that Abraham ever traveled to Mecca or engaged in these practices. Instead, available evidence suggests that tawaf and other rituals were deeply rooted in the polytheistic culture of Arabia long before Islam. The continuation of these practices under a new religious framework raises questions about their transformation. Critics argue that if Allah is truly the one true God, it seems inconsistent to endorse rituals originating in idolatry. This continuity between pre-Islamic and Islamic worship practices suggests a potential rebranding of existing traditions rather than a complete departure from them. The origins of Islam itself also invite scrutiny, particularly Muhammad's initial revelation in the cave of Hira. According to Islamic tradition, Muhammad encountered an angel who delivered the first verses of the Quran. However, this encounter left Muhammad deeply shaken and distressed. A hadith, Sahih Bukhari, 6982, recounts that Muhammad, overwhelmed by fear and doubt, contemplated suicide by throwing himself from a mountain. Only after the angel reassured him of his role as a messenger did he abandon this idea. This reaction has puzzled many observers. Encounters with divine messengers in the Bible, while awe-inspiring and humbling, do not provoke despair or suicidal thoughts. Instead, biblical angels typically bring messages of hope, reassurance, and clarity about God's plan. This stark contrast has led some to question the nature of Muhammad's encounter. The Bible warns against deceptive spiritual experiences, cautioning believers to test the spirits to discern their origin. 1 John 4 verse 1. This has led critics to suggest that Muhammad's revelation may have been influenced by a source other than God. They argue that the similarities between pre-Islamic practices and Islamic rituals, as well as the theological differences between Islam and Christianity, reinforce the idea of Islam as a rebranded continuation of older systems of worship, potentially aligned with a pattern of spiritual deception rooted in Baal worship. While these interpretations are highly controversial, they reflect ongoing debates about the theological and historical relationships between major world religions. Critics and supporters alike continue to explore the implications of these connections and their influence on spiritual and cultural narratives. The idea that spiritual beings can masquerade as divine messengers is a recurring theme in theological discourse. Galatians 1 verse 8 warns, "But even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed." This passage highlights the possibility that even angelic beings might deliver messages contrary to God's truth. From this perspective, Muhammad's revelation is interpreted by some as a deception orchestrated by a fallen angel or demonic entity. The fear and despair Muhammad experienced during his initial encounter align more with the influence of a malevolent spiritual force than with the presence of God's messenger. The aftermath of this encounter further supports such interpretations. Critics argue that Islam's rapid expansion relied heavily on conquests and military campaigns, a stark contrast to the peaceful propagation of the gospel in early Christianity. These conquests often involved forced conversions and the destruction of existing religious practices, reflecting militant aspects of ancient Baal worship, which was also characterized by coercion and violence. The centrality of the Kaaba in Islamic worship is another point of contention, as it ties back to its pre-Islamic origins. Hubal, the chief idol of the Kaaba, was central to the religious life of Mecca before the advent of Islam. If Hubal is indeed Baal, as some evidence suggests, the Kaaba historically served as a sanctuary for Baal worship. The rituals and practices associated with the Kaaba were not entirely replaced but were instead repurposed within a new religious framework. This adaptation preserved many elements of the original pagan worship while reinterpreting them in a monotheistic context. By framing Hubal as Baal and identifying the Kaaba as a continuation of Baal worship, critics view Islam as part of a broader spiritual narrative of opposition to the God of the Bible. This perspective underscores the continuity of religious practices and symbols, suggesting that Islam's emergence represents a reimagining of ancient traditions rather than a complete break from them. The blending of pre-Islamic rituals, Muhammad's troubling initial revelation, and Islam's methods of expansion are seen as evidence of its connection to earlier forms of idolatry, particularly Baal worship. Jesus Christ made a profound and exclusive statement about his role in humanity's salvation when he declared, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 14 verse 6. This assertion emphasizes that the path to God the Father is found solely through Jesus Christ, who is not merely a teacher or prophet but the embodiment of truth, life, and the sole mediator between God and humanity. In contrast, the Bible describes Satan as the father of lies, John 8 verse 44, whose mission is to steal, kill, and destroy, John 10 verse 10. Satan's strategy has always involved deception, leading people away from the true God by twisting truths and promoting destructive doctrines. Critics argue that Satan may have used Muhammad to achieve his purposes. By dissociating Allah from Hubal and rebranding him as the God of Abraham, Satan allegedly devised a clever scheme to mislead millions. Today, 1.7 billion Muslims sincerely worship Allah, believing him to be the one true God. However, if Allah's origins trace back to Baal, then Satan has successfully deceived nearly a quarter of the world's population. Furthermore, the circumstances surrounding Muhammad's revelation raise questions. According to Islamic tradition, Muhammad received his first revelation from a being he believed to be an angel. However, his reaction, fear, despair, and even thoughts of suicide is unusual for encounters with biblical angels. In contrast, angels in the Bible typically deliver messages of hope, reassurance, and clarity. The Bible also warns against false gospels and evil beings disguising themselves as angels of light, Galatians 1 verse 8, 2 Corinthians 11 verse 14. This has led some to question the true nature of Muhammad's spiritual experience. The fruits of Islam, marked by violence, deception, and destruction, are often compared to the works of Satan described in the Bible. The parallels between pre-Islamic pagan rituals and Islamic practices, such as the tawaf, the act of circling the Kaaba during the Hajj pilgrimage, reinforce this perception. Historical accounts confirm that tawaf was practiced by idol worshippers venerating Hubal. Muhammad, his family, and his tribe, the Quraysh, were devotees of Hubal before the advent of Islam. The most significant point of divergence between Islam and Christianity is the identity of Jesus Christ. Islam denies Jesus as the Son of God, rejecting his divinity, crucifixion, and resurrection. Yet Jesus proclaimed himself as the only way to God. This denial is not merely a theological difference but a direct rejection of the gospel and the foundation of Christian faith. According to the Bible, such rejection aligns with the spirit of the Antichrist, 1 John 4 verse 3. Under the guise of religion, Satan, critics claim, has disguised Baal worship as Islam, leading billions astray. By elevating Muhammad as his prophet, Satan created a system that obscures the truth of Jesus Christ and perpetuates spiritual bondage. This alleged deception has profound implications for understanding the spiritual roots of Islam and its impact on humanity. The themes of violence, lies, and destruction align precisely with the nature of Satan, as described in the Bible. Another critical point to address is the consequences of following false gods. While worshiping the true God brings meaning, purpose, and a deep spiritual connection, following false gods can lead to devastating outcomes, both in this life and beyond. The Bible is unequivocal in declaring that there is only one true God, and worshiping anyone or anything else creates a divide between humanity and the Creator. In Exodus 20:3, God commands, "You shall have no other gods before me." Worshipping false gods usurps the rightful place of the true God in a person's life, leading to a fractured relationship with Him. This separation is the most profound consequence, as it cuts people off from God's love, guidance, and eternal hope. A central tenet of Christianity is that salvation comes through faith in Jesus Christ. In John 14:6, Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Following a false god means rejecting this truth, which carries eternal consequences. The Bible teaches that those who reject Christ's salvation will face judgment and eternal separation from God. This underscores the gravity of choosing whom or what to worship. False gods often promote teachings that deviate from the moral framework established by the true God, resulting in harmful behaviors and practices. Historically, some religious systems have endorsed destructive acts, including human sacrifice, exploitation, and immoral rituals. Even in modern contexts, false gods, whether material wealth, fame, or power, distort priorities, leading individuals to make choices that harm themselves and others. Romans 1:25 warns, "They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator." Satan, described in the Bible as the father of lies, John 8:44, uses false gods and teachings to mislead humanity. 2 Corinthians 11:14 cautions believers that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. This spiritual deception binds people to falsehoods, making them believe they are on the right path when in reality, they are moving further away from God. False gods often promise fulfillment, enlightenment, or success, but these promises are hollow, leaving followers lost and confused. When entire societies follow false gods, the consequences can be devastating. History offers numerous examples of cultures steeped in idolatry or misguided religious systems that led to division, conflict, and oppression. False gods often justify corruption, injustice, or exploitation under the guise of religious duty, affecting individuals, communities, and nations. The Bible emphasizes the eternal consequences of rejecting the true God. Revelation 21:8 states, "But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur." This is the second death. Following a false god is not merely a temporal mistake but an eternal one, leading to separation from God and the blessings of heaven. The worship of false gods often perpetuates cycles of deception across generations. When parents, leaders, or cultural systems promote idol worship, they pass these beliefs and practices on to their children, keeping entire communities trapped in spiritual darkness. Turning away from the true God means missing out on the blessings, peace, and purpose He provides. Jeremiah 29:11 offers hope. "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." False gods cannot offer these blessings, leaving their followers spiritually impoverished and directionless. Despite the severe consequences of following false gods, the Bible offers hope and redemption. God desires all people to know Him and turn away from false worship. Acts 17:30-31 reminds us, in the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he has appointed. Through repentance and faith in Jesus Christ, anyone can find forgiveness and reconciliation with the true God. The Bible assures believers that Satan's defeat is inevitable. Jesus Christ has triumphed over sin, death, and all powers of darkness through his death and resurrection. He has crushed Satan under his feet and offers salvation to all who believe in him. The message of the gospel is clear. There is only one way to know the true God, and that is through Jesus Christ. No religion, philosophy, or human effort can substitute for the grace offered through him. While Satan continues to deceive, the light of the gospel shines brighter, calling all people to repentance and truth. As followers of Christ, we must pray for those trapped in deception, sharing the love and truth of Jesus with boldness and compassion.